Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Axial webinar today. Thanks for joining. Before we kick things off, I'd just like to check that everyone can hear me okay. So if you wouldn't mind going ahead and just writing a little comment in the comments box, and once we know that's all good to go, we'll kick things off. All right, great. Again, thanks everyone for joining today, which will be the first of a series of Axial webinars, which we're putting together with the objective of making sure that you're getting the most out of your membership with us at Axial. We're going to be focusing today's webinar on best practices around optimizing your deal flow. So to kick things off, we're going to start with some introductions, head into a section on responsiveness, followed by keywords. Then we'll take a look at the advanced search functionality. And then after we wrap up, we'll hand it over to a Q&A to get some questions from you. And we'll take things from there. So to introduce myself, I'm Nick Ross. I'm a Member Success Manager here at Axial. I'll be hosting today's call. My colleague, Mark Romeo, is a professional services consultant here, and he'll be running through the presentation and also answering any questions. So with that, I'd like to kick things over to Mark to run you through the presentation. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Nick. Hey guys, good to have you on with us. First thing I wanted to go over was responsiveness. And we're going to talk about why that's important to your success on Axial when it comes to increasing your deal flow. So the main thing to remember here is that we want to keep the level of engagement on the network really strong and healthy, and we want members to feel like they're being dealt with in a timely manner. Obviously, a lot of deals are time sensitive, so we want to be sensitive to that fact. So the key here is to really make sure that we're responding to our deals awaiting review queue in a timely manner. So what happens a lot of the times is members might let things sit and, maybe you're away traveling for work that week. And sometimes that list can come back a little overwhelmingly. When that happens, the best thing to do is to just really sit down, give it 20 minutes, really just try to clear out your deal queue to try to build up your responsiveness rating. And we'll go into why that's important. But for now, I just want to make sure that we're all understanding that when you have a deal awaiting review, it's important to take action one way or another. You either want to pursue or decline and not just let that sit there. And what happens is you can actually retroactively clear that backlog, and it'll bring your responsiveness rating back to green when that happens. So one of the things that's really important here too, as a best practice to increasing deal flow, is if you are going to decline a deal, make sure that you send a message along with that. And a really interesting statistic for that is that 80% of deals closed on the network come from the third interaction between members. So that's 80%. So we really want to make sure that communication is key here. And again, when you're declining with the message, just restate your investment criteria. Just kickstart the relationship. There's a lot of reasons why the sell side isn't marketing all their deals. And we want to make sure, it might be too early stage there. And we just want to make sure that you're keeping yourself top of mind for some of these members who have looked at your profile and have chosen to share a previous deal with you. So we'll get into the product and I'll just show you what I mean by that. So here we have a dummy account set up just to show you a little bit what that looks like in real time. So if we go to deals you've received, again, a lot of this is really intuitive, but it's not something that all members naturally will think about. So when we're looking at our deals, right here again, a lot of times I think members might just feel that if they're not interested in pursuing a deal, they'll just let them sit instead of actively declining here. And what I meant with declining with a message was instead of clicking this button, you simply click the envelope, and that's going to be a good chance for you to restate your investment criteria and kickstart that relationship. And one way or another, try to get these done within 10 business days, either pursuing or decline, because after that, that's when it's going to knock your responsiveness rating. We have a screenshot here of why it's important to get that responsiveness rating up. So as you can see, it falls into a few different categories, but the main thing to take note of is the color scheme. So green is healthy, yellow, obviously medium health, and then red is, quite an unhealthy score, relatively speaking. So as you can see, here is what the sell side looks at when they market a deal to the network. This is the screen that they see. So they'll get a recommended list of targets based on your investment criteria overlapping. And as you can see here, the matches, like the healthiest match in terms of industry and financial parameters will largely come to the top, and that's the top list that they'll see, as reflected by these Harvey balls on the right. But what you can see here is actually that someone who has the healthiest responsiveness rating will actually take precedence. In this case, Vivo's corporate will take precedence over Strength Capital Partners, even though Strength Capital Partners has a better fit for the deal itself. And again, this is, largely, if you think about it, for instance, if you do a Google search and, you very rarely statistically will go to the second page. And we really want to make sure that these responsiveness scores are kept healthy, because it makes for a much better sell-side experience. So keywords are going to help showcase your strategic intent, and they're really best utilized for narrowing your investment parameters, although they do carry the risk of eliminating yourselves from a wider deal flow. And again, this is really going to be best practice for very niche focused strategics, I'd say, or private equity firms that also have a very tight focus on what they're looking to invest in. So we have positive keywords. Again, these will help tailor your buy-side project by searching through the deal teaser and making sure that any applicable words that match up there will get sourced. And only deals that match up on those keywords get sourced. Then we also have negative keywords, and this is going to help you filter out any irrelevancy. So, for instance, if you don't want to see anything in construction, you'd put that in your negative keyword. Best practice here is to really start light. So especially if you have a wider investment focus, I really wouldn't suggest putting keywords in. You can see what your initial deal flow comes out of that. If it's unmanageable or you feel like you're seeing a lot of irrelevant flow, then definitely tinker around. Start with a few words, and then you can build up to actually narrow things down. And again, negative keywords are going to be there to block out any noise for you. So we'll just show you again in the product what that looks like. So if we go and edit one of our projects here, all right, we'd go to filters on the third tab up here. And here we've put treatment and environment as the focus of this deal. And one of the things that we want to make sure of, though, is that we're not seeing anything related to hardware. So we're looking for environmental tech companies on this project, but we want it more on like a software basis, as opposed to anything related to hardware or equipment. So that's how we've had these set up. And what I meant by the stemming functionality on the previous slide is that if you type in environment, the logic on these filters, or on these keywords rather, will give you options like environmental. So that'll come up naturally. You really don't have to type any different derivatives of the word. And again, bear in mind that this only pulls from the deal teaser that was uploaded by the sell side. So if if treatment or environment is referenced in that deal teaser, you're going to see that deal, assuming that it matches your financial parameters as well. If you have keywords on, but the sell side project is outside of your financial scope, you will not see the deal. Financial parameters will always take precedence over the keywords. On the next slide, we want to go back into what the sell side will see, which we call the recommendation list. And what we have here is going to be a screenshot of, you know, why it's important to make sure that your company profile is robust, and, you know, how important it is to be aware of branding on the network. So, you know, for instance, it's very clear what John Smith at ABC Capital is looking to achieve here. His investment criteria is well outlined on the transactional intent, which is going to be on your marketing section of the product. And it'll also show for the sell side what criteria fit. So obviously the industry overlap was a fit on this. The financial fit was strong, and the Harvey balls are going to indicate the strength of each. Obviously, you can see here too what put John Smith at the top of this list as well is that the keyword matched for treatment. And again, that's you know, that's just reflective of the importance of keywords if you have a very tight strategic focus. But again, you know, it might limit some of the deal flow you'll see. So if you're interested in seeing more than less, definitely do not use keywords, at least to start. So advanced search. I'm always surprised by, you know, how few of our members are utilizing this, because it's a great tool to really be proactive in your deal sourcing and not just passive, which would be, you know, creating the projects and, you know, waiting for incoming deals to come through. And not that there's anything wrong with that approach. Obviously, that's a great way to be efficient with your time. It's a great way to make sure that you're seeing relevant deal flow. But what advanced search will do, if you have some extra time in the day to do this, it'll help with travel planning, and it'll also help with, you know, your efficient outreach. And I'll show you what I mean by that. You know, essentially, we have a database of 2,500 intermediaries that you can leverage by using the advanced search function. And one of the things that I want to discuss too here, though, is messaging best practice. You know, much as you would feel the same way, we want to make sure that nobody's having an experience on the network that feels spammy to them. So if you are going to do an outreach to an intermediary or to anyone else on the network through the advanced search function, you know, make sure you take the time to really understand their company and, you know, what their specialty is. Maybe visit their website, really take a look at the company profile, so that, you know, so too if you were to write a cover letter for a job you really wanted, you know, they know that you are targeting them for a purpose and that you've done your homework as well. That's really important. I can't stress that enough in terms of getting that engagement up and building those relationships the correct way from the start. And, you know, travel planning as well is going to be big here. So for instance, if you were to go to, you know, say Dallas, you had a trip there to visit a client or to talk about a specific deal, this is a great way to get some extra ROI on the trip, because you can set up meetings with a few different members on the network to supplement that initial trip. And obviously, you know, between travel planning or general outreach, a lot of this can be kind of a time suck. And I think, you know, that's one of the reasons that a lot of members will elect for the professional services package, because what happens there is your consultant will go, you know, obviously they'll speak to you about what your strategy is, what your priorities are at the moment. You know, if you are going to a city, you'll tell them that ahead of time, and they'll do all the research for you. They'll give you a curated list based on your industry overlap and your strategic focus. You'll run through, if you don't have relationships with any of those names, they'll also then conduct the outreach on your behalf and make a curated introduction via email so that it's also been a warm introduction. You're not doing any of the outreach yourself in that regard, and your consultant will have had a conversation beforehand and make sure that there's going to be a responsiveness on the other side. If you're on the member engagement team and you have any questions about how to do this, feel free to reach out to your team-based support. But again, this is going to be largely on you to do that yourself and to be, again, really trying to implement best practice, which is really taking the time to do the research on who you're reaching out to. So I'll just quickly show you now what that looks like. So you can get to advanced search on the top of the page here. Now, if I'm a private equity firm and I'm going to Los Angeles, say, and my focus is on environmental projects and facilities of that nature, I'm going to go on this list here. I'm going to select merchant bank, investment bank, and I could leave it there. I could also do M&A advisories, business brokers, but if I only have a few days, I might try to make sure that it's a very targeted outreach. So even if I click just merchant bank and investment bank and typed in my industry, here you can see it'll give you a list of suggestions. Here we'll just focus on environmental and facilities services. On this next tab, you'll put what your target city is. And we run a search. So from here, we got a solid list of 13 intermediaries, and that's only from selecting investment bankers and merchant bankers. We haven't even gone through the business brokers and M&A advisors on this. So as you can see, it's a great way to quickly see what you want to do. And to, again, if I want to reach out to Capstone Partners, I can take a little time, look at their website, and then reach out to Jacob Voorhees accordingly and try to set up a meeting around that trip. Everyone that's on this network is here because they want to close deals. They want to share their pipeline with you, and so too do they want to start these relationships as much as you do. So engagement is really key on this. Now, if you have, if you definitely travel a lot and you want to save some of these searches down so that it's easy to come up next time you go into the screen after you've put in the parameters, just click Save Search Tier. And you can just type in quickly, what you want to do, environmental LA, save it down, and you can always go back to your saved searches here. And it's a really easy way to streamline your searches going forward and to really save time down the road. One question I've gotten a few times is, can I then focus this further on different intermediaries that have actually closed transactions on the network? Again, that's something that is definitely possible. You'd go down further. Obviously, this is the top of the Save Search screen. You just scroll down further and you'd select Show Companies with any prior recorded transactions. And you can actually then drill down into more granularity on what types of transactions you're looking for. So it's divestitures, recaps, or growth capital raises. This is all kind of ways that you can tailor that search accordingly. One of the things we also want to highlight is our flagship event coming up in October, which is Concord. This is a great day out for networking, but that's too weak of a term for this. The way Concord is structured is it's just a day full of highly curated one-to-one meetings. If you're a professional services member, we manage the entire calendar for you. We get your priorities, and we're going to set up meetings for you based on industry overlap with the different intermediaries that are attending the event. And we also have a team that talks with them beforehand about what their pipeline looks like, just to make sure that these are highly targeted, relevant meetings for you. There's a good lunch, but other than that, it's really one-to-one, half-an-hour meetings throughout the day. And that's October 24th in New York City. If you have any questions about that, reach out to your professional services consultant or the member engagement team support.
Thanks very much, Mark, for putting that presentation together for us. Just a couple of things before we get into the Q&A. Obviously, this is the first of a series of webinars that we're putting together, and we really want to make them as relevant to our buy-side members as possible. So we'd love to hear any feedback that you have on this session. And again, you can reach out to us either through your professional services consultant or through the support email for the member engagement side. A couple more things that I want to highlight as well. We've recently revamped our newsletter Radar, which is a great resource for staying on top of not only things going on at Axial, but also everything to do with sort of middle market happenings. So if you'd like to sign up to the newsletter, the link is in this presentation, which we'll be sending across to you following this webinar. Another really great resource that I want to highlight is our product updates page. Axial is putting out new updates to the platform on a weekly basis at this stage. So new things are happening all the time. To stay on top of those, again, the link is in the presentation. At this point, I want to take in some questions that have come in through the webinar before we wrap things up. So to kick things off, the first question that we received, how long will it take to improve our responsiveness rating if we retroactively clear out our deal queue?
That's immediate. So again, if you can go through for 20 minutes in the day, just spend that 20 minutes clearing out whatever. If it's a quick decline, send out the message accordingly. If it's a pursue, click the button and sign the NDA. But again, that will immediately bring your health score back up.
Great. The next question that came in, if a project has a positive keyword such as oil and a negative keyword such as drilling, which will take precedence if both are contained in the deal teaser?
Drilling, the negative keyword will always take precedence.
Great. And in follow-up to that, do I have to use keywords?
No, again, this is only if you're really having a strategic, niche focus. Again, that's the only time you're really going to want to be utilizing the keywords. It's going to restrict your deal flow in a lot of ways, but that can be good for some people. But again, best practice for increasing deal flow would be to stay away from keywords in the immediate time.
Great. Just a couple more here. So this one came in. I haven't heard back from a seller from a deal that I responded to. What's the best practice moving forward? Maybe Mark, you could give your thoughts on the professional services side, and then I could talk a little bit about member engagement process.
Yeah, sure. On the professional services side, if that's happening, and again, we always got to put ourselves in someone else's shoes sometimes. Sometimes these guys are traveling as well. Things just get missed. If you're on the professional services side, reach out to your consultant and they'll go ahead and do all the groundwork for you. They'll reach out to that member and find out what's going on, make sure the deal is still live and relevant. And if it is, then they'll go ahead and put you guys together, whether it's email or some other medium. They'll make sure they kickstart that conversation again.
And I think on the member engagement side, obviously there's a few ways to get in touch with us. Perhaps the easiest way is through the platform, contacting us through the support link, alternatively emailing us at help@axial.net. And the process there is once we receive the notification that you've got a non-response from a sell-side member, we'll work with our supply team to get in touch with that seller and try to get a response back to you as soon as possible. So just the last question here before we wrap things up. Is there a way to limit my results in advanced search to only people who've closed transactions in a certain sector?
Yeah, right. We did show that. So it's really like intuitive. Once you start to use that page, you'll see what the different optionality is in terms of really getting granular with what your search focus would be, and you can tick the box accordingly. That's going to be there on that page.
Great. That looks like all the questions that came in. Thanks everyone for getting involved with that and sending those through. And again, just for being here and listening to our webinar today. As I mentioned, we're going to be hosting these on a recurring basis going forward, and would love to hear your feedback on what you'd like to see. So keep an eye out in your inbox for any future notifications. But otherwise, have a great rest of the week, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.